Well, hello everyone. Let's try that again. This is how it's supposed to work. And you know what? Screw it. We're live. I have a guest who will be joining us today. Thank you all for joining me here again for the Power Half Hour Live Part 2. We are doing something a little different today. I have a guest returning to us. Unfortunately, we were able to get her on the Power Half Hour a couple of weeks ago, and unfortunately, the audio was, let's just be honest, it was god awful. And I asked her to join us again for another Power Half Hour. And yeah, so if you do remember, there was a link for Ronda Robinson to join us, and she's doing amazing things. And it was such an awesome interview. I was devastated that you couldn't hear all of the information that she was sharing with us. So we're going to hang tight. She says she's going to jump on shortly. Typically, I have a little buffer intro so that everybody can get the popcorn or whatever it is. But if you are here live, type in hashtag live. And if you are here for the replay, go ahead and type in hashtag replay. Again, we will just be killing a little bit of time waiting for her to join us today, so that she can drop some incredible knowledge about empathy, right, and how that relates to being in business. And it seems like she is here with us now, so let's go ahead and get her on. And when she does get her microphone and everything all set up, I'll click over. Hey, there she is. And I'm gonna click on right now. So I don't know. We're getting some
Your audio's
reverb.
coming in and out.
My audio's coming in and out.
Yeah.
Oh Lord, are we doing this again?
I told you I'm that person.
This is crazy. So what if I put on headphones? Will that
It sounds okay now.
I'm just getting some reverb.
That might be me. Let me do something here. Is that better?
Let me see. Let me see if I can do it. Go ahead and talk.
Talking.
Talking. We're good. All right.
Yay.
Hot diggity dog.
How are
Rhonda.
you?
How am I? I'm
Yeah,
great. How are you?
I'm doing good. Good to see you again.
Good to see you again. I was just explaining how I screwed up. Let's just go ahead and call it what it is. I screwed up, and your audio, I couldn't hear you, and I guess a button got clicked, and it's in the past. We're here now. We're in the present, right? And now you froze on me. So,
Yeah, you froze on me too.
oh my gosh, this is just gonna.
Let me do something here.
I don't know. This is too much power. That's all it is.
Hold on, just 1 second.
Sure. We got so much energy that we're causing the whole network to shut down.
I just opened my office door just in case my internet booster wasn't making it through.
Okay.
So see if that helps. We'll try anything.
We got to try anything because honestly, I was just commenting on how amazing that interview was last time. Like that was so fun for me. And I apologize. Like I didn't obviously anticipate that happening, but I was able to get you to. I was able to convince you. I had to bribe you with candy and all kind of goodies to get you to come join me again today.
Candy
And
and bribery will get you everywhere.
they will get you a lot of places. So thank you again for joining us today. And I promise the audio is working now. So we'll pick up again where we left off. But before we actually do that, if you're here live, go ahead and type in hashtag live. If you're here for the replay, type hashtag replay. And Rhonda, we talked about so much the last time you were here, and obviously the situation happened. Will you please share with the people what you do?
I bring humanity back to the workplace.
Yes, you do.
Yes. Um, you know, the pandemic has really put a spotlight on how you cannot differentiate personal life and work life. It's intertwined, and we artificially tried to separate that in the past. Don't talk about your personal life. Don't ask people personal questions. If you need time off to do something, you have to apply. You have to get the paid time off, leave. If you don't have enough, then it's too bad. And one of the celebrations coming out of the pandemic is recognizing that people are people if they're at work or if they're at home. And the way that you can get the most of the people at work is by treating them like a person instead of an entity. Their feelings aren't left at their door, their problems aren't left at the door. And so employees now are demanding more empathetic employers. There's all kinds of research out there to say that 3 out of 4 employees will leave to go find another more empathetic culture. And they'll even do it for less pay. They'll change industries. That's how important it is to them. And while leaders are getting the signal that, hey, we need to be more empathetic, that's kind of one of those squishy terms.
Hmm.
And the leaders are left with empty hallways because their people are leaving, saying, well, how do I do it? I do think most leaders care, at least to some degree or more, but they just don't know how to apply empathy at work, especially if they've been applying a leadership style that's not empathetic. Now, to do that, now they feel like they're not being authentic. So it's this vicious cycle of, and also feeling more weak. Like, if I show empathy, I am going to be seen as a weak leader. So I'm going to hold back. I'm going to rule like I have always. And I use the word rule, like I have always. Meanwhile, their people are leaving or they're disengaging. And so they iron fist it more, tell people just suck it up. We all went through the pandemic. Who are you to be special? And why do you think exceptions should be made for anyone? You're here to work. You signed up. You knew what you were getting into. And the suck it up part is actually backfiring. No surprise.
How did you get into this space? I know you had worked in the corporate space for quite a while, and then you just had this epiphany that I want to do this myself. Can you? I know it was a little bit more intricate than that, but can you kind of take us on this journey of where you were before and where you find yourself now?
Bet. So my roots are in the training and development space. And at least in the pharmaceutical industry, I think a lot of places do this as well. If you're good at like being a salesperson, you can be promoted to train people to be good salespeople. But what we found is that it was a pass through, that person was a pass through onto something else. They went into marketing or they went into sales leadership. And there was never someone at the helm of the training function to see it over the life cycle of the company, see it over the life cycle of the brand. And so it was always disjointed. Imagine if wherever you work, you had somebody new coming in every few months to a year to 2 years to apply the training, and they want to put their stamp on it. So they redo everything. And you, as a learner, you're like, we did that 3 people ago, and you think it's new.
Mm-hmm.
And the marketing department needs some continuity for pulling through the brand plan, and the leadership team needs someone stable that they can count on to grow with the company. So that's where I planted my flag. I felt like training, by being a professional trainer, and that's my background, a certified professional in talent development, is where I could have a greater impact. So instead of my little world, I wanted to expand my world. I did that for almost 30 years. And but after I was company after company, because in our industry, I love the startup space. And when you are a startup company, you're wildly successful and you get bought, or not so much, and you fold. And so kept finding myself in this cycle of starting a new company and then being downsized through a merger and acquisition. And that's really where I picked up on how important empathy is at work. I've gone through so many mergers and acquisitions, and not a single one has gone well.
Mm.
Some better than others, but not one has gone well. Why? Because the leadership and the transition teams are so busy just trying to um, make the daily integrations happen. They're all about the tasks, that they're not thinking about the people. And who's impacted the most? The people. Either they're downsized,
Mm-hmm.
which leaves a bitter taste in your mouth. You put in all this work and then it's like, oh, you don't need me anymore. You don't even know who I am, new company.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a line item, and you just decided I'm no longer relevant. And that hurts. And then on the flip side, for the people who are staying, what happens? For a period of time, they get extra work because there's not enough people to do the job with the intellectual capital to carry it through. There's this us versus them dynamic that's happening. New company, old company, new teams, new bosses. It's just icky. It's
Mm-hmm.
all icky. And that's where empathy comes into play. Because if you do it right, number one, you can help people through the journey. But more importantly, you can get in front of it. People, listen, there's a way to get in front of it. It doesn't have to be this hard. And if the people part, the feelings part doesn't resonate with the listeners right now, here's the punchline. All of this translates directly to your bottom line.
Mm-hmm.
Might be saying, well, why? How is that? Well, if people are preoccupied in their brains, being negative, thinking about the sequelae of everything that's happening, they're not doing work. If they're upset with the company for whatever reason, because they were overlooked for a promotion, because they're not being heard with either their ideas or ways to do things better or even things to fix,
Mm-hmm.
they can retreat. Now I'm not doing as much work. Why should I put in effort for you if you won't even listen to me? All of that translates to time and money.
It's crazy. So, have you found that? And I don't know. This may seem like a dumb question. Is it are women more likely to have these traits, the empathy traits, because of genetics? I guess I don't know if that's a. Forgive me for sounding really ignorant, but do you feel like women possess this trait better or more often than men, just through natural cultural things that happen? I don't know. Forgive me if I'm saying that. I want to be delicate with the words that I'm choosing here. Do women?
Let's just
Go ahead.
let's just make an agreement to have some hashtag real talk on this
Sure,
show.
please,
Okay,
real
we'll just
talk.
say it like it is.
Thank you. My God, you see me fumbling over here. I'm like, spit it out, Paul. Spit it out. Or do you find that
No,
women? Yes, go ahead.
I appreciate your approach to being sensitive to the issue. So there's so many layers to that question, but it's a good one. It's a really good question. So at face value, in the current mix of the workforce, one would say yes, women tend to be more empathetic at work. But why? Because of all the unfair predicaments that women who work have been put in. What does that mean? Well, most women are both caretakers of the children as well as working part time or full time. Simply interacting with children and even animals naturally makes you more empathetic. Um, so they've just been kind of trained indirectly on being more empathetic, reading body cues, thinking about what the other person might be going through, especially for little children, because they can't voice what they
Mm-hmm.
need.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to set aside your own mindset and think, what might this child need from me who's crying hysterically? It's one of probably a few things, but you've set aside your own thoughts and you're trying to say, what does this person need? That's empathy. Empathy is nothing more than setting aside the narrative in your own head, setting aside your own agenda, and stopping for just a few minutes to say, in this situation, what could this person possibly need? It's not rocket science. It just takes a moment of clarity to take a step back and just do that. So, step one, when I teach people how to apply empathy at work, is just demonstrate that you are aware and you care. That goes a long way, just to connect and make people understand that you're paying attention.
Mm-hmm. Do you think there's a shift? Have you noticed a shift with the way people are being more empathetic? Do you find that people are becoming more empathetic in the workplace, compared to 50 years ago? But I mean, in a short span, do you feel like people are making that shift more naturally, or do you feel like they still need, obviously, your coaching and your techniques to help them achieve more empathetic atmospheres for their business?
Paul, another excellent question. And so, yes, I think the desire is there, the attempts are there. If you just put into Google and you type in two words, leadership, empathy, on any given day, you will see at least 50 million search results in Google for leadership empathy.
So it's there. People want it.
So people want it.
Yeah.
Yes. And they are trying to, try something. So it shows up in terms of town halls, ask any questions you want. Pizza Fridays, half day off once a month on Fridays for kind of mental health breaks. They're trying to demonstrate a little bit of empathy for what people are going through. Applaud that, yes.
Something's missing, yet there's more.
Something, well, it's there's a better way to get there faster. And in business, especially if you were in a high growth company, if you're in startup mode where you need every single person firing on all cylinders every day, you want to show empathy, but you want to do it quickly and impactfully. So that's where practical empathy comes into play, because it's all rooted in behavioral neuroscience. Can I take a minute, kind of
Hey,
share
I
something?
would hope you would. Please
Okay,
go
good.
as deep as you must.
All right. So keeping it kind of high level. This all goes back to primitive survival techniques. The brain scans the environment 5 times every second, 5 times every second for triggers that could improve survival or reduce the risk of being hurt or killed. So, translate that now into today's world where we're not looking for the saber-toothed tiger in the bush, but we're looking for social threats. Same thing happens 5 times a second. The brain is scanning for one of 5 triggers that drives emotions, which then in turn creates behavior that you'll see at work. So the acronym spells SCARF. S for status. Status is how one person feels they relate higher than, lower than, or equal to another person. It sometimes can also be in relation to yourself. So you've heard people say, I compete against myself to do better. That's a form of self status.
Mm-hmm.
C is for certainty. Whew, a lot of uncertainty in the world right now. But leaders can create more certainty at work and give people peace of mind that they know what to expect. That's all certainty is, a, an ability to sort of predict what's coming next. A is for autonomy. Hmm. Who likes a micromanager?
No,
No,
nobody, said I.
nobody. That's why many of us entrepreneurs work for ourselves,
Yes, yes. I can do it myself. Mm-hmm.
right? Exactly. So autonomy is a big one. Relatedness. Oh boy. Okay, there's a whole nother talk show. We could do a whole nother podcast on diversity and inclusion, right? That's a form of relatedness. So do I feel like I'm in the in group or the out group? I'm sure everyone listening right now is thrown back in time to grade school, middle school, high school, and figuring out which group you're in group, out group. This is such a powerful force that you see it showing up in the world today. And in fact, if we can pause because we've got one more letter to go, but on this one, it's really important. Diversity and inclusion, we've got it backwards. We're doing it wrong. By talking about diversity, all we're doing is pointing out differences.
Mm-hmm.
It's with good intentions, but all we're doing is talking about differences, whether it's political parties, whether it's color of skin, whether it's gender identification, how much money you make. Everything is about how different we are. We are way more alike than we are different. We should be talking about inclusion. We're all in the in group. Once you have that, now you can appreciate, honor, and celebrate the differences within the in group. If you kind of think of it as a ray, as a sun,
Mm-hmm.
and everything in that hot ball of fire is in the in group. That's us. And then we've got these little rays that come out of it, and that's the diversity among us. But it's all one bright, shining sun.
I love that.
Again, we could have a
I
whole nother.
know we still got a whole another letter left. So yes, I love it. I love that analogy though. That's really cool. I like that.
Thank you. And then the last letter from SCARF is F for fairness. And that almost goes without saying because how many times in your life you say, that doesn't seem fair? That's unfair. Well, that seems fair. We are wired in our DNA to think about fairness. And that's another thing that leaders can do, being transparent. Talk about processes for, say, promotional tracks or for how benefits are created and applied. How, even if it's a merger and an acquisition, how decisions were made so that people don't feel victimized, that there was a process that was fair that goes into, um, whatever the initiative is. And going back to diversity and inclusion, fairness is a hot button right now as well, because in the efforts to bring in more diverse groups of people, those who were in the in group before now feel like they're in the out group, and that's not fair, right? It's like, well, it wasn't fair that they were in the out group to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
And some people would say, well, now you know how it feels. It still isn't fair. And so having more objective criteria for thinking about hiring practices or promotional practices to get diverse mindset, which can include, a culture that someone comes from, is a fair way to go about it versus arbitrarily saying, we need a percentage of this and a percentage of that. There's a whole nother talk show that we can talk about, which is called the glass cliff, when you reactively promote someone into a position of leadership based on kind of that numerical thing. Dynamics happen in the background related to SCARF, that model I just told you about, where now that new leader is doomed to fail because of these triggers that are
Mm-hmm.
happening in people's mindset. They don't do it on purpose. They don't do it on purpose, but it does not set up that new leader for success. And when success doesn't follow, now we're back to perpetuating, oh, well, they just shouldn't have been there in the first place. We tried this whole diversity thing, but oh,
Mm.
I don't know. So let's go back to old white guy and promote him back in. And now he's the savior, right? Ooh, it's a whole dynamic that's going
I
on.
know. That's pretty impactful. I, can I ask you this? How did you where did you get your training? Like how did you master all this stuff? I know a lot of it came from your previous background, but what did you do to enhance the knowledge that you already had?
Thanks for asking, Paul. I, I've always been a perpetual learner. It stemmed from also wanting to be the best trainer that I could be. And when you are a trainer, you're in front of people, and a big part of it is everyone okay? Because if they don't feel okay, they can't engage and get the most out of the
Mm-hmm.
training. And that's where I found this behavioral neuroscience group. One of the prominent ones out there is called the Neuro Leadership Institute. And it's psychologists and behavioral neuroscientists and actually brain scientists who pool their research together. You know, when you're studying the human brain, you don't always have a big population of people to study as an individual researcher. But by pooling it together, you can make some larger conclusions and know how to apply it. So I got involved with that from a trainer perspective. Um, but I'll take you back to 2012. I was working for a company, a startup company, and we were acquired by a larger
Mm-hmm.
company. And
It didn't
at
go well. I remember that.
didn't go well. So the other company was from the East Coast. We were based on the West Coast. So time zones alone was a factor. But our leadership team observed that employee engagement was plummeting, just tanking. And so they asked a group from cross functional teams to come together and try to solve for the engagement. Well, I just learned about this SCARF model through a conference that I went to, and nobody had any other ideas. I didn't realize it at the time, but I created practical empathy on the job, on the fly to solve for this very real circumstance. And so what we did is we divided the engagement team into five and assigned each one a letter. So the S team was tasked with looking for any status threats. And a part of the status threats were trying to fit job titles, which were, kind of an HR salary grade at one company, and putting our group salary. Our group was paid more, by the way, higher
Mm-hmm.
salaries. So there was risk of people either having to go down a job title or being displaced and not eligible for promotion because of their salary grade. So huge status threats just in that alone. Then the C group was looking for certainty, autonomy, relatedness, and fairness. And each letter head could recruit additional people to help them identify the problems and come up with solutions. And that's how we tackled it. And, did you hear me say anything about Hallmark cards or
No.
patting people on the shoulder, no tears? It was a very pragmatic way of solving for engagement. And people felt heard. They're like, thank you for recognizing that I worked really hard to get promoted into this job title. Now you're telling me I'm not eligible for a pay raise for another year just because this other company's
Mm-hmm.
salary grade doesn't match ours. Not fair.
Not
So you
fair.
go
Yeah.
from status to fairness very quickly. They're all interconnected.
That's awesome. Will you share with me like what it is that well before I even go there, how long does this process typically take? I mean, do you have a training program? What does that look like for someone when they want to work with you? What does that process look like?
Yes. So it's tailored to the individual needs. So periodically, I actually offer Yes, a free 5 day challenge for people just to learn more about what I've been talking about, the nuts and bolts of it. And for some, that's just enough to at least get started in their own daily application of empathy. Others who are in dire straits and need a solution now, like a company going through or anticipating a merger or an acquisition, we dive in real deep. I've done this enough that I know the triggers to look for, and we put a plan into place, either proactively if it's coming up or retroactively if it's already happened. And I mean, it doesn't take long to show people that you're aware and you care. That's the first step. And if you can get that done
Mm-hmm,
fast,
mm-hmm.
give them certainty we're doing more to address this. And then the plan depends on, how many people and what the needs are. Um, I've worked with individual leaders. So there was an HR leader for a psychiatric hospital that I worked with who was having contentious relationships between the owners of the hospital and this new leadership team. The owners of the hospital had had problems with the prior leadership team. They cleaned house and brought
Mm-hmm.
in this new group. Well, the owners of the hospital now had a little PTSD. They were traumatized, if you will, by what happened with the prior leadership group. So they were holding on very tightly, micromanaging every effort, not granting autonomy. And so, as you can imagine, this new leadership group was saying, why did you even hire us if you're not going to listen? And the HR person was caught in the middle. So I worked with her, and we actually flipped the script and we applied empathy upward first. She was able to say that she recognized the burden that the owners were
Mm-hmm,
carrying
mm-hmm.
and empathizing with how to find a way forward because they had all these new initiatives to make the hospital more successful. In one conversation, I coached her for 2 hours, two separate times, on how that conversation would look. She came back to me. She said that the one owner that she spoke with revealed way more than she even suspected was going on behind the scenes. It was a very emotional
Mm-hmm.
conversation, and it opened up the dialogue for them to talk about how this new leadership team could support their vision rather than, them going in this misaligned fashion. And so in 2 1-hour sessions, she turned it around. She took it from there.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Now, do you work? Again, this is kind of related. Now, do you? You said it, but I want to go a little bit, highlight it a little bit better for me. These sessions, they're one on one. What does a session look like? Are you sitting down in their office? They come over the phone. Over how does that look?
Yep. So let's go from like baseline level all the way up.
Sure.
So the free course that I do is a 5 day challenge. It's 1 hour a day for 5 days in a row, where people just tune in virtually and they listen. I've done other group sessions, either virtually for teams, say teams of up to 8 to 10 people is the ideal, where we're working through specific things that are on their team. And I like to do 8 sessions. So we do one on kind of the general empathy thing, one session on each of the 5 letters, and then 2 on how they're applying it and coaching them in their real time scenarios. We can level up from there and do organizational workshops. So typically it's a 1 day workshop. It's that 8 sessions condensed into time. Ideally, you do it 4 hours one day and 4 hours the next day
Mm-hmm.
because there's homework involved.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's working on leadership coaching, which is ongoing. And depending on the need, it can go between 2 sessions all the way to a year long, like once a week coaching. And I do organizational change, and that is the most intensive. Usually I set aside every obligation that I possibly can I go on site, we do an analysis of the situation, come up with a game plan or recommendations, and then who we're going to recruit in to help, because you always need internal advocates to get going. And then the game plan is usually executed virtually. We do touch points throughout the process. Um, there's so many different applications for this. I mentioned mergers and acquisitions, also just employee engagements. Um, it's not uncommon for an employer to feel something's not right,
Mm-hmm.
and they do this employee survey and they get the results back and they're like, yeah, but I don't know how to fix that. And so they do nothing. They talk about it, they go, oh, we got your results, we're committed to helping, and nothing happens, or just some lipstick things happen. And then the employees are like, see, we told you, you don't listen, you don't care really, you're not gonna do nothing for us. And they disengage further, and the problem just,
Yeah,
continues.
continues. Yeah, that's awesome. Well, obviously, you know how fast these things go. We are already out of time again.
How'd that happen?
Um, but I do want to get on the record. You know, my word is more. You know, I want more, obviously, for myself and for my business and for my family and for my clients. Um, what's something that you want more of? I know we talked about this before, but obviously we couldn't hear your answer. So why don't you tell us again what it is that you want more of?
What I want more of, um, I just want to be able to amplify this
Mm.
message. To me, I'm passionate about it because I think it's a gift to the world. And to be able just to share with people that there is an answer. 50 million Google searches, there is an answer. That's what I want more of.
And you have the answer. You know, you've been seen on Fox Business Channel. I keep messing these letters up. Why don't you tell me the stations that you've been on so I don't continue to make myself look
Sure.
silly?
ABC, NBC, and Fox
There you
News.
go. There it is. There it is. All those. So obviously, people are hearing you, and what you're doing is making an impact. Who is this for?
It's largely geared towards leaders and HR managers right now, but hey, everyone is a leader in their own right. Individuals who simply want to apply empathy at work or even in their own personal life, this translates seamlessly into personal life. It's a way to unlock difficult conversations, it's a way to connect with people more. It's just a way for us to be more human.
That's beautiful. I do want to show your website where people can find. Now, this is the. Should I show Practical Empathy or the Robinson Alliance Group? Which one?
So, practical empathy is more focused on just this approach.
Sure.
Robinson Alliance Group, we do other things, but practical empathy is really where to find out the key information about what we've talked about today.
Awesome. So yeah, I have the website here. You can also find Miss Rhonda on LinkedIn. Again, she's doing amazing things for people and businesses and helping. Oh, that's not where did. Oh Lord, have mercy, boy! I tell you, I tell you. There it is. There. Oh God. Oh gee whiz! I tell you, this is something else. But yes, find her on LinkedIn. Befriend her. Get this information. Like tune in to the empathy that she's sharing with corporations and business leaders alike on how to make a better work environment. You know, obviously that affects the bottom line. And I'll bring us back on here. There we go. Um, Again, Rhonda, thank you so much for being patient with me. I promise I will figure this all out at some point. Um, I hope you're showing some empathy towards me, and I am showing gratitude to you for taking time out of your schedule to meet with me again today. I appreciate it so much. We touched on so many different things, and I know again we only just are getting to the surface of this, and I'd love to go again deeper with you for a third time, officially two, but technically three. I'd love to have you again as a guest if you're open to it.
Absolutely, Paul. I could talk about this all day.
I know you can, and I want to hear it, and I know there are people out there that need to hear this. So um, I want you all to share what you've learned today and be more empathetic. What's one thing you can do today to show? What was your quote? Share or I care. Please, I'm gonna
Just
write it
show
down.
that you're aware and you care.
Aware and you care. I'm writing it down. Aware and you care. I'm gonna practice that today. I'm being aware and I care. Awesome. We did it.
We did.
Yay. Thank you so
Well, thank
much.
you so much.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you all for tuning in. I know it's been a rocky road with me, but I promise I am getting better. And, we are learning more and more from amazing leaders out there in the world. And again, that's the whole point of this show is knowledge is power. And the more knowledge you have, the more powerful you can be as an entrepreneur and grow and scale your business the right way. Thank you again, and thank you, Rhonda. Until next time, on Wednesdays, the Power Half Hour.
Thanks, Paul.